the challenge of climate change is serious. The impacts of climate change are going to become progressively worse and would lead to major disruption in human society in different parts of the globe. And at the same time, I'd like to emphasize that mitigation actions to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases are really quite easy, and in several cases low cost or zero cost and even negative cost. And I think if we have to follow what Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world, then we have to start with ourselves. And one way that we can make a major difference is to reduce our meat consumption. The world today is on a path where meat production and consumption is growing very rapidly, and this is a source of a large quantity of greenhouse gas emissions. So if we as human beings reduce our meat consumption, possibly through one day a week being a meatless day, we can make a major difference, and frankly, I think we'll be much healthier. If a reduction in meat consumption by about 15 to 20% was to take place, that translates possibly into a 5% reduction in overall greenhouse gas emissions. So that's substantial. And this is something that we can achieve without any investments. And there are also major benefits from this because, a large part of deforestation in several parts of the world has taken place only to clear those forests and convert it into pasture land. And the pasture land that's being used is not only for keeping animals and feeding them, but also producing feed material for those animals.
Reducing meat consumption in the rich countries, restraining it worldwide by 2050 at the per capita level of 2000, which is 37.4 kilograms per capita per year, we would free an estimated 400 million tons of cereals for human consumption. This is enough to cover the annual calorie need for 1.2 billion people. In directing investments in agriculture, taking the environmental dimension into account is crucial. Unsustainable forms of agriculture, unsustainable patterns of consumption are accelerating the trend towards global warming. This increase in livestock production since 1950 has led to severe overgrazing worldwide, and it's estimated that since 1950 we have lost some 680 million hectares, 20% of global rangeland degraded by overgrazing.
I personally believe that the problem of climate change has now reached proportions that we cannot possibly ignore any longer. We're on the eve of the Conference of the Parties due to take place in Copenhagen next week, and we hope that we'll come up with a strong agreement. The livestock sector, according to FAO's report, emerges as one of the top 2 or 3 most significant contributors to the most serious environmental problems. It should be a major policy focus when dealing with problems of land degradation, because these are associated with the livestock production cycle, climate change, and air pollution. It also leads to water shortage and water pollution and loss of biodiversity. We must realize we are all residents of spaceship Earth, and if we want to protect the climate of this Earth and stabilize temperature increase to, say, 2 degrees Celsius or less, then I think we have to use every means to mitigate the emissions of greenhouse gases. And I'd submit to you once again that cutting down on meat consumption would be an extremely effective way of doing so.
What can the European Parliament do, and the governments of the world? I suggest that they could encourage and guide people to reduce meat consumption. because now new ethical issues have arisen, and it's not really very ethical to ignore these issues. It's no longer a personal choice. This is something that's going to affect the whole of the planet. What we need to do is give people an answer. So I'm suggesting that one-day meat-free could cut individuals' emissions by equivalent of a 1,000-mile car trip. I urge you, each of you, to do your bit for your people, for their children, and for the planet they will inherit. Go meat-free one day. Thank you.